welcome to another edition of What the Fuck happening to YouTube atheist community and tiny chats. Hysteria. Anyway, yeah, last night. I was a little animated last night. And the good news is I did make a recording. I had it sitting right there. I mean, it's just a foot away, and I set it up every time, and I just didn't hit the button. So there's only got a couple hours of the cool down period. But something's better than nothing, right? Or sometimes not. Yeah, like farts. Nothing's better. Anyway, I suppose it could be a theory that's explored in more depth. Yes, alarm clock. My alarm clock. There must be an auction coming due or something. No, maybe I was just supposed to get up now. Yeah, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I was supposed to get up now. Obviously, the day didn't quite work out right. All kinds of, well, whatever. It's always something. So we had this rain and then some pumps and what else? Oh yeah, it's just kind of amazing. The grass is frozen. I mean, there's water and the grass. I mean, everything's frozen, like impossible to walk on and such. But anyway, it's better than snow, so I'm happy-ish. See, snow the roof will fall on me. So rain is okay. Anyway, where was I? Okay, so last night, yeah, so, it really went alright. I mean, Logic Rolls the Dice even came into the room and disguised as holiday at first. He's going to troll the room or whatever he's going to do. But whatever, it worked out okay. There was some other guy, and I finally had to kick him after 3 hours or whatever it was. But it was the same pattern. You go all the way around the circle, you finally get to the conclusion, you punch him right in the nose, you just, knock out. And they just reincarnate like zombies. They just get, you shoot it and just gets back up. And you're like, what the fuck? He's going to start over again. So they just go back to the beginning and start arguing the beginning premises. And so it's just so circular. And you can only do that so many times and you just start getting dizzy. Just like Ferris wheels. You can too much of that stuff and it makes you throw up. So there was a point where we were done, because he was just going back to the beginning again. And, Hotfoot Day keeps doing that. So I'll play a little bit of his clip here just for the fun of it. Turn this into some kind of video. But I'll do some other mentions first. I did mention the other video, Darwin's hamster made a video about motion, a little bit of physics. And it's just nice seeing Joe again. So his video is somewhere in all of this mess. I did make a ton of videos. I noticed there's Joe's video. So there's Joe. I made like a dozen videos last week. 14. No, that's like 2 a day. And some are an hour long. It's a lot of video. So sorry about that. I know too much content is it's no good either. But I sort of am in a transition period. I mean, it's all getting... I mean, the good thing about these arguments I've been having is they're making me stronger instead of weaker in terms of my own convictions. So it does create some clarity as you go over it 5 or 6 or 7 million times. You start to see that there really isn't any alternative reasonable theory, and it does make it all kind of fit into place. That's good, and conceptually fit into place. So, I mean, my theory of life, I guess I would argue, is that, I don't need to add anything to it. To me, I think it's all explained. It seems all quite obvious what's been going on here. In terms of the mechanics, the basic overview of the mechanics, the function, what's it doing? The blender wheels are spinning. The substance is being torn to pieces, degraded, ruined, and a slurry is coming out that kind of is very unappealing. Yeah, that's it. So, anyway, so is there something else? Working on the next edition of Vloggerdome, the economy stuff. Everybody else is kind of boring. Warbles is doing his kangaroo thing. Anaconovat is doing his religious thing, and that's all I can call it. It's who cares what fucking third world people, what their totem poles look like. I just couldn't care less. It's all psychobabble, how to feel good. It's not about being good. It's not about being productive. Just about how to feel good, as if that's all you're here to do. And if you can't imagine there's a bigger game going on than what's happening to you. I mean, you look at planet Earth, covered with all this green stuff, all these living organisms, and on top of that, all these people. And the best you can do is, how do I feel? I can't say how badly you've missed the boat. I mean, you are so landlocked that you will, you're hopeless. Quite hopeless. So anyway. Yeah, so I think that's enough, and then also I'll talk a little bit about the three principles here, the three ideas, or four ideas, whatever I feel like talking about. So how's the days? He's made a little stream of rag videos. I don't think I'll bother responding to him about how to argue, and I couldn't give a shit. I guess my fundamental argument would be, the most basic argument is, if somebody proposes a theory, the real part of the measure of the substance of it is going to be, is there a conceivable alternative? Is there some other conceivable, just even conceivable, way of arranging the pieces and saying A, B? So I'm arguing for A, B, C, D is the right order. Is there a conceivable other order? A, W, F, no, that doesn't sound right. Is it conceivable? And I think that is a measure of credibility. And at least gives you a reason to explore ideas based on the existence of these alternatives. I don't think there's anything conceivably solid about the theory of a God. You can just punch holes in it all over the place. And so that's sort of my standard. Either you can't punch holes in what I'm saying, or you have to come up with an alternative that's better. And neither one of those conditions are being met by my opposition. They're not giving me any reason to think my consciousness isn't producing value, except some idiotic argument like computers don't feel. Yeah, well, they don't have the same kind of brain. They're not creating a feeling theater. Something like that. Or come up with some other explanation, like somehow my feelings are part of a matrix, and in the matrix it seems like it means something, but it doesn't really mean anything, and even though you can't imagine how those horrible feelings could be nothing, they're actually nothing. Well, that doesn't sound like much of an alternative explanation. So I'm just saying that's the conditions I place on. That's how I would rationally value some theory, is whether I can easily come up with an alternative that makes more sense, or I can easily come up with loopholes and explanations of physics or logic that just say it wouldn't happen that way, because the very idea of a God doesn't explain creation. Where did God come from? See, it's just too easy. Alright, yeah, that's probably enough of that. So he's made videos on this how to argue thing, which is just, like I said, these are all just a waste of my time. And so I did watch the beginning of this one, so I'll play with this one. I haven't watched this, Misgivings on Purpose, Life of Pi. He's doing way too many comparisons to theater, actual movies and TV. The argument from TV show is a little bit, you really can't criticize somebody else's argument from if you're going to be using the argument from TV. Come on. Anyway. So, I think this is the one here, yeah. So let's play a little bit of this. I'll just premise it. So this was last night's conversation, and largely it was again over these two concepts of value, real value, and sameness of the basic human function. That it really doesn't matter whether you're derive your happiness from blueberry pie or apple pie. The happiness being derived is the thing of value, the source of the comfort. It doesn't really matter if it's warm ducky or teddy bear. It doesn't matter which one makes you happy. Kitty, puppy, doesn't matter. So what we're doing as agents in terms of saying I have these particular tastes in life or these particular ambitions, that kind of crap doesn't really mean anything. Again, we're basically back to there's just as much accomplishment in terms of creating a blissful state in a kid who gets his first poo-poo in the toilet as there is climbing Mount Everest. It just doesn't really matter what's making you happy or what's making you blissful. It's the bliss that has value. Alright, yeah, so that's the underlying that's one of the points that ties the two things together. So the other argument to make, so that's the value argument, and then there's the I guess the overview thing would be this idea of, are you out to discover the truth or project the truth? And so one of the subjects of truth, okay, of the universe is, does the universe contain real value? Or does it only contain projected psychiatric values, which you want or desire, not the fact of the sensations of your desire? So that's where these people don't understand, or this is where we're miscommunicating, because they're talking from their psychological projecting of value mechanism that we all have, and thinking I'm talking about that when I'm talking about actual value. Actual value doesn't have anything to do with what you want. It has to do with the fact that you want. Yeah, tricky. But it's not really tricky. So, in viewing, as I've stated in the videos, it's just a observation from my perspective as a consciousness, and that our brain, what it's doing is there are programs, really crude programs, very pinch ouch kind of programs, very reflexive programs, that are creating sensations that feel good and feel bad. And those sensations exist in our mind space. And our brain, the thinking part of it, now strategizes solution to the feeling. It reacts to the feeling with a solution. And that's basically the functionality. And the argument I'm making is that when your psychology is creating these feelings, that they're more than just representations of a I think you should. No, they're creating an actual negative, and the should is tied to the actual negative. The qualitative feelings have a substance. I can't make one. If I make one right now, I create a feeling thing and put suffering in its brain. There's no, in my opinion, rational way to say I haven't created value, that I haven't created a value-making machine. So I'm sort of arguing that consciousness is essentially farting value. Okay, and it's in this form of whatever, however you want to describe it, but a kind of positive and negative fart. Or more accurately, you can have a real stinker, or just a benign a whiffer. So you have this variety that goes from bad to worse, and that state is counted. So it's like we're having a competition, a game, and let's just say the game was fart, and so you just counted how much fart was being created by the players, and whoever farted the most wins, or whatever the thing would be. And so what I'm saying is, as we're existing in our little gameplay of life, which is really worth counting, what's really significant that's happening, is how much of this feeling we're farting. Especially, most specifically, this horrid, horrid torture feeling. Very powerful. You know how much sulfur, yeah, is in the atmosphere. That would be the thing you're measuring. You have a certain number of people, you have so much sulfur, you just add it up, you say if it's this high, this much concentration, then you're failing at the game. So the game is to get the amount of sulfur way, 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 way down. So all you're doing is whiffing, and there's no sulfur in the gassy game we're playing. So that your feelings are all rather benign feelings, not malignant feelings. Sensations. I should say sensations, I suppose. But anyway, that's this conscious space is where, there's this place where what I just said about this gas is manifested. Like I said, we have this consciousness, and it actually throws a feeling in there that we can see, we can feel it, and we have to do something about it because it has this decided character. It is decidedly good or bad, and so it will decidedly lead us in a direction toward or away. But it's not about how we react to it. It's about its existence in and of itself. And that's where me and Hothliday are not communicating. He's not seeing any connection. He's from beginning to end. He's just seeing the word bad as some meaningless word. Just designating some circumstance for which there is some logical course that says stop that, like it's an injury, and like it's only bad because, like, if I get stabbed, it's only bad because the blood is coming out and I'm going to die, but it's not bad because I'm suffering. That kind of thing. The suffering is just some sort of byproduct, and that it has no meaning. The only thing that's really meaningful is life and death, or something like that. And I'm arguing that the real meaning is in this qualitative conscious experience, and that the life and death you have just become qualitatively and experientially you associate it with those feelings. You associate death with negative feelings, and that's why it's bad. It's not bad in and of itself. It's bad because your body viscerally creates negative feelings at the very thought of it. Yeah, the very concept scares you and seems obnoxious to your very being. But death and dying are two different things, and we've gone through that before. Alright, so I think that's enough. So it's just, basically it's first, what are we after here? Are you trying to discover the truth, or are you trying to project the truth? Are you saying that the projected truth has some meaning? I should pay attention to what somebody's brain says versus what somebody's brain says about reality? I mean, I really don't care what you think is valuable. I care about what you think reality is. I care about what you think is real, not what you think your brain says or something like that. Projected value just doesn't mean anything. Discovered value means something. And value is part of truth. So it's just really, you're saying, are you trying to discover the truth, or are you trying to just make up a truth? And I'm saying that value is part of describing reality. That it exists in reality, and value is manifested as sentient sensation. Yeah. Okay, and then the sameness argument just seems so obvious. Like, that one's like, I shouldn't even have to argue the fact that my feelings aren't super feelings, and that everybody's feelings are important. And although we're not as useful to the world, or cool, we don't smell as nice, or we're not, you know, although we're very diverse in the function of our machinery, the what we produce as a sensation has the same value. So it really doesn't matter how good a person you are, your farts are your farts. Your sensations are your sensations. They don't have anything to do with whether you're Madonna or, you know, President of the United States farts. It's just a fart. It's not a special presidential fart. Okay, now let's play with this.
It's interesting to notice that Inmendham's arguments are splicing somewhat.
Yeah, they're never spliced at all. So, you know, so you're, even this play, even this game, that there was ever any splicing. The argument has always been that sensations are the source of value, and that all the organisms that are having them, it is significant wherever it is created in any organism. Yes, it could be bigger or smaller depending on the organism, but I'm just saying it exists as a substance. The sulfur of the feelings exists. The meaning of the torture, if that's what they're experiencing, exists. The weight of it, the reality of it, it exists as a happening, and it was a bad happening, and it's put in the register, it's counted. Bad happening. And a little mark is made.
You see, we have the fact that nailing high causes suffering, is bad, etc.
Well, you say etc., but you know, this is what the whole argument is about, because you're going to start doing that to them shit. You're going to start taking it out of the universe and putting it somewhere else and saying it's suffering, but it's only to them. So it doesn't somehow get counted. Somehow the fart is only their fart. It's not real in the air. And that's the part where we part company.
We understand what this means in terms of the philosophy of language, that we're talking about the nail in the eye is both bad to me and bad to you. These are existent events in the universe.
Yeah, but again, if you're going to keep saying they're just bad to me, and that it has no meaning in the whole game, it's not counted as a bad thing happening in the universe. So you're saying that somehow it can be bad to me and not be a bad thing happening in the universe. I'm just merely saying that when I'm having bad to me, it's counted as bad in the universe, okay? That's how you can account for it. The universe doesn't get a freebie and say, I didn't do it. I didn't make it happen. I didn't create it. It's not my fault. No, it's in the universe. The bad exists as a fact, not just a fact to inside of me. Of course, individual vessels, individual machines are creating the gas. But it's the gas that is the reality. It is the fact of its existence as a sensation happening. A sensation happening. A sensation happening. And it's not just happening here. It's happening in the universe. And that's the part you're just not getting.
I don't know why Inmendham keeps bringing it up as though there's disagreement here.
Well, because there is disagreement, a fundamental disagreement here. You're not saying you're saying the scoreboard is blank. I could create a 6 billion Jews suffering on Mars, and you'd say the scoreboard is blank. They're only suffering to them. They're not suffering in the universe. I don't have to write it down as a happening in the universe and put the negative number, 6 million suffering individuals. I don't have to account for it. There's no number. That's the difference.
But this is wasting both our times. So we have this situation. And
I didn't watch this part. You want to watch it together? Maybe? Well, let's watch a little bit of it together.
Inmendham wishes to impose the idea of there is value and you must play the accounting game of value, quite separate and above from the normal way in which one might talk about value, in that, you know.
See, now even just that statement of normal, see, that's where I'm saying, okay, maybe it's normal for you people, but it was never normal as any part of my life. There was never any time in my life that I heard somebody speculate that I could punch somebody in the face and the pain of it would be only value to them. Okay, I didn't have to account for it at all. I didn't have to account for a bad thing happening at all. I just had to worry about the fact that it was a them. And if it was a them I care about, then somehow it matters. And if it's not a them I care about, then somehow I don't even have to account for it. It's not a bad thing. I mean, I've always been aware of the fact that if you punish a criminal, even a heinous criminal, you have to account for the fact that you're going to harm another person. I mean, there's no way of getting around it. That harm's going to happen. And there's more harm in the universe now, because now not only did he create all this harm, but now you're going to create more harm harming him. And for some time I had a problem with that until I realized that, well, you really have to do that to have anything called deterrence. And that's why religion has hell in it. That's why it's promising goodies. It's because there has to be goodies.
I value not having a nail in the eye. You value not having a nail in the eye.
Well, again, personally valuing something is like having an argument about, Twinkies versus blueberry pie. Why would I waste my time having an argument about what's better, blueberry pie or Twinkies? Who's more special, Batman or Superman? Why would I waste my time doing that? If the value doesn't have a reality, then I'm totally uninterested in a conversation about it. And I'm saying I can't even imagine how you can make an argument that I could create a sentient in a vacuum, create an empty vacuum, call it Garyverse, and then I could make my Garyverse, and somehow I could put a sentient creature in it and torture it. But it wouldn't matter because it's not in the Garyverse. It would only be inside the tortured creature, and therefore I don't have to account for it. And I could just fill my Garyverse full of tortured sentient beings and still say my Garyverse is beautiful because it's just pretty colors, and just ignore the fact that all those things are being tortured because it's only happening to them. I'm saying conceptually that's what you're saying, and I'm saying bullshit. It's happening, and it's happening, period. And it has to be accounted as actual value, not subjective value. The subject is irrelevant. The fact that a subject creates it is irrelevant. The fact that it is created as an experience is the only thing that matters. The fact that it happened as an experience is the only fact that means anything here. It happened, it's an experience, and it's negative. Period. Doesn't matter, human, mammal, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter.
Now, he has tried to make a video dealing with this and recognizes the trouble in the language and the maneuvers he must make linguistically. And so there's the splice element has entered the argument. And Inmendham must choose which avenue he wishes to defend as true.
Oh, bullshit. So I won't even... No, I'll finish this. No, this is just too stupid. The two facts, the fact that value is created by sentient organisms, and the fact that sentient organisms have intrinsic sameness in the sense they're creating the same fart gas, okay, those two are not in conflict with each other. Those two factual descriptions of reality have absolutely no conflicting elements. They have a symmetry that is undeniable. They fit right into each other. We might as well finish this stupid shit.
The splice is this new idea, rather, the way he phrases it sounds rather childish. The idea that same deserves same treatment. And this would only be true and recognizable within an implemented schema. That is, somebody having responsibility, perhaps.
Oh, fuck. You're just not getting it, okay? This isn't about social contract. This isn't about deserve. It's about the fact that when you're keeping the score, okay, you're at this, so say the stadium is down here, and the stadium is producing this value gas, right? The amounts of experiences. And the fact is, it just doesn't matter. The place where they're counting the value gas, okay, it just doesn't matter how you're creating it. It really doesn't matter what kind of silly dance, whether you're square dancing or you're hokey pokeying. It doesn't matter what kind of silly individual dance you're doing. The only thing that's going to matter is how much blood, okay, how much torn tissue is on the battlefield. It's all that's going to matter is how many things were tortured, how much torture was experienced in playing the game. And it's really not gonna, it doesn't matter what vessel was manifesting the torture gas. So yes, we can play the game better or worse. We can play a good game and produce very little torture gas, or we can play a bad game and create a lot of torture gas. That's true, but that's not the subject of this conversation. The subject of this conversation is why do we have to create less torture gas? And the reason is because it has value. Okay, so that's why there's an ought here. That's the is-ought gap. Asshole.
Of having agreed to take responsibility, then you would understand that a difference in treatment.
Dog sucking the cock over there.
Might be objectionable. But
the cock. Sucking the cock. Yeah, it's funny. I'll play on words.
The question then of objection to this created intrinsic value has now switched to a completely new argument.
I noticed it. Did you follow any of that? The creation of this basic intrinsic value is now switched to a new argument. There's no new argument. I'm sorry. There really isn't. Like I said, it's I'm all. You have to have a social contract of ethics just to keep us alive as a social contract. But in absolute terms, let's say the law says I can't murder anyone. But I know somebody's Adolf Hitler, and I murder them. And I'm right, he is Adolf Hitler, and I prevented a horrible Holocaust. The fact is, breaking the law was a great idea, and I won, because I did it right. It's just a fact. I prevented a huge amount of bad gas, and that'll be the bottom line. So all those minor ethics have nothing to do with the absolute truth of value. They're important in terms of having civilization, and that you're going to need those things if you really want to do this, play this game right. But the overview ethic is the one that resolves the is-ought. The is-ought will not be answered in social contract nonsense. The is-ought is answered in big picture, what's the end result? What's the net product? And the net product is really the only product that matters.
That you bear responsibility, as Inmendham puts it. We are the bus drivers bearing the responsibility. And that becomes the question issue that needs evidence and arguing for.
No, it doesn't. Like I said, it's just a fact of life that you can do. You can the amount of the consequences of your impact. Quite obviously, I could just walk over there and strangle the cat. I could go outside and murder my neighbor. I could do all kinds of things to cause harm to things. So obviously, there's a variance, a whole spectrum of how productive I can be or how destructive I can be, and that's just a fact of our existence. I don't have to prove that. I mean, the fact that you could live a really rotten, crappy, shitty, unproductive existence, I really shouldn't have to explain that to anybody. It's quite obvious that there's obvious ways to make yourself a real piece of shit.
And again, Inmendham, I expect, suspect, anticipate, will be totally vacuous also.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, I hate you. Enough said. You're an asshole. You're an idiot. You're a liar. You're scum. And that's exactly what I have to say about that. Let's see, what logic rolled the dice? He said something here. In capital letters. Oh, Christ. Exactly. He sneaks in as the hidden premise, one ought to be fair. The word fair, again, this is another word that's just so obviously has the word ought written all over it. There's no point in even coming up with the concept of the word fair if it didn't have an ought tied to it. It wouldn't mean anything as a concept because it's acknowledging the fact of the existence of the unfair. And the word deserve and earn. These words would have no meaning in your world. They have meaning because they have written all over them, this is the preferential state. This is the state where you maximize performance conceptually of the value preservation. You can't preserve value and not understand these words. Oh, pathetic. Let's see again. Sameness would just be a fact, not a value. Well, I don't know who said sameness was a value. The idea that the vessels making value are creating the same kind of value is just a fact. A fart is a fart is a fart is a fart. Presidential farts aren't special farts. Because they're the same. No, they aren't. But even if they were, so what? Again, so what to the idea that the value coming out of me is the same being produced by somebody else. Well, the so what of that is that if I'm logical and I have logical integrity and I can cure their cancer for $5 and I can cure my cancer for $1 million, that it would be smarter to cure their $5 cancer first. Yeah. So anyway, gee, these people are they're just so desperate to create a world that will embrace their selfish, egomaniacal scummery. Their desire to be scum. Unaccountable scum. I don't want to have to worry about my impact on sensitive creatures. I want to be a reckless motherfucking cunt. Well, yeah, you can't be that and claim you have some kind of respect for intelligence. This logic says you be dumb. Okay, probably enough now. Until next time, and such, and so forth and whatnot.